The title of history's most popular explorer typically goes to Marco Polo, the incomparable Venetian traveler who visited China in the 13th 100 years. For sheer distance covered, nonetheless, Polo drags along the Muslim researcher Ibn Battuta. However mostly secret external the Islamic world, Battuta consumed a portion of his time on Earth's longing across huge areas of the eastern half of the globe, moving via ocean, by camel band, and by walking. He wandered into the north of 40 cutting-edge countries, frequently placing himself in outrageous peril just to fulfill his desire for new adventures. At the point when he at long last got back following 29 years, he kept his capers in a cumbersome travelogue known as the Rihla. However, current researchers frequently question the veracity of Battuta's compositions. He might very well never have visited China, for instance, and a large number of his records of unfamiliar terrain seem to have been counterfeited from other creators' works. The Rihla is an intriguing investigate the universe of a 14th-century drifter. Brought into the world dressed in Tangier, Morocco, Ibn Battuta grew up in a group of Islamic adjudicators. In 1325, at age 21, he left his country for the Center East. He planned to finish his Hajj, the Muslim journey to the sacred city of Mecca, yet he likewise wished to concentrate on Islamic regulation en route. I set out alone, he later had, neither individual explorer in whose friendship I could track down cheer, nor procession whose party I could join, yet influenced by an overmastering drive inside me and a craving long valued in my chest to visit these renowned safe havens. Battuta started his process riding solo on a jackass, yet before long connected up with the pioneer train as it wound its direction east across North Africa. The course was rough and criminal swarmed, and the youthful voyager before long fostered a fever so extreme that he had to attach himself to his seat to abstain from imploding. In any case, he carved out an opportunity during one visit to marry a young lady, the first of nearly 10 spouses he would ultimately wed and afterwards separate during his movements. In Egypt, Battuta concentrated on Islamic regulation and visited Alexandria and the city of Cairo, which he called unbeatable in excellence and quality. He then, at that point, proceeded to Mecca, where he participated in the Hajj. His movements could have finished there, yet having finished his journey, he chose to keep meandering the Muslim world, or Dar al-Islam. Battuta professed to be driven by a fantasy in which an enormous bird took him on its wing and made a long trip towards the east to Broken Bar and left me there. A blessed man had perceived the fantasy to imply that Battuta would wander across the earth, and the youthful Moroccan planned to satisfy the prescience. Battuta's following couple of years were a hurricane of movement. He joined a procession, visited Persia and Iraq, and later wandered north to what is currently Azerbaijan. Following a stay in Mecca, he journeyed through Yemen and made an ocean journey to the Horn of Africa. From that point, he visited the Somali city of Mogadishu before plunging underneath the equator and investigating the shores of Kenya and Tanzania. After leaving Africa, Battuta concocted a strategy to venture out to India, where he wanted to get a worthwhile post as a Qadi, or Islamic appointed authority. He followed a winding course east, initially slicing through Egypt and Syria before cruising for Turkey. As he generally did in Muslim-controlled lands, he depended on his status as an Islamic researcher to win friendliness from local people. At many places in his movements, he was showered with gifts of fine garments, ponies, and even courtesans and slaves. From Turkey, Battuta crossed the dark ocean and entered the space of a brilliant crowd Khan known as Uzbek. He was invited to Uzbek's court and later went with one of the Khan's spouses to Constantinople. Battuta remained in the Byzantine city for a month, visiting the Hagia Sophia and in any event, getting a short crowd with the ruler. Having never dared to an enormous non-Muslim city, he was shocked by the practically endless assortment of Christian chapels inside its walls. Battuta next traversed the Eurasian steppe before entering India using Afghanistan and the Hindu Kush. Showing up in the city of Delhi in 1334, he won work as an appointed authority under Muhammad Tughlaq, a strong Islamic ruler. Battuta spent quite a while in the comfortable work and, surprisingly, wedded and fathered youngsters, yet he ultimately became careful about the fluctuating ruler, who was known to mutilate and kill his foes in some cases by throwing them to elephants with swords connected to their tusks. An opportunity to get away from at long last introduced itself in 1341 when the ruler chose Battuta as his emissary to the Mongol court of China. Still hungry for experience, the Moroccan set out at the top of an enormous parade overflowing with gifts and slaves. The outing to the Orient would end up being the most nerve-wracking section of Battuta's odyssey. Hindu dissidents bugged his gathering during their excursion to the Indian coast, and Battuta was subsequently captured and denied of everything except his genes. He figured out how to come to the port of Calicut, yet just before a sea journey, his boats extinguished to the ocean in a tempest and sank, killing numerous in his party. The series of catastrophes left Battuta abandoned and shamed. He was reluctant to get back to Delhi and face the king, be that as it may. So he chose to make an ocean journey south to the Indian Sea archipelago of the Maldives. Yet again he stayed in the untainted islands for the following year, glutting on coconuts, taking a few spouses, and filling in as an Islamic appointed authority. Battuta could have remained in the Maldives considerably longer, yet following a run-in with its rulers, he continued his excursion to China. In the wake of visiting Sri Lanka, he rode vendor vessels through Southeast Asia. In 1345, 4 years after first leaving India, he showed up at the clamoring Chinese port of Quanzhou. Battuta portrayed Mongol China as the most secure and best country for the voyager and adulated its normal excellence, yet he additionally marked its occupants as agnostics and unbelievers. Upset by the new traditions in plain view, the devout explorer adhered to the country's Muslim people group and offered just dubious records of cities, for example, Hangzhou, which he called the greatest city I have seen on the substance of the earth. Antiquarians banter exactly the way that far he went, yet he professed to have meandered as far north as Beijing and gotten through the popular Fabulous Channel. China denoted the start of the finish of Battuta's movements. Having arrived at the edge of the explored parts of the planet, he at long last convoluted and ventured home to Morocco, showing up back in Tangier in 1349. Both of Battuta's folks had kicked the bucket by then, at that point, so he just stayed for a brief time before making an excursion to Spain.